Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. Did we all get debated with AMD regarding the specifications of Navi 31 and 32? The answer is most certainly yes at this point. And we're going to be doing something a little bit different in this video. We're not just going to be talking about one set of specifications, because I've heard of a second set of specifications, and I have to say I'm leaning towards the second set being right. And if it's true, boy howdy, AMD are producing a card in a very different manner to what we expected, and we're going to get right into it after this message from the video sponsor. And of course, if you want a cheap Windows key, you know what to do.
If you're running a copy of Windows 10 which isn't activated, of course, not only do you have to worry about the missing customization options, but there's also that annoying Windows desktop watermark reminding you to activate. Today's video is sponsored by WhoKeys.com, and they have an excellent price on Windows 10 Professional as well as home keys. Yeah, and they also of course sell games. I've bought a few Windows 10 keys with my own personal account to test everything was legit and worked in preparation for this sponsored video. You can pick up one of their keys for 25% off using the coupon code RGT in the checkout. There's links to their website in the video description. Also, if you're building a few systems, there's bundles available too. Again, you can check out WhoKeys.com and use the coupon code RGT for 25% off the listed Windows 10 key prices.
Now, I'm not going to go into the whole history of N31 specifications and performance because we all know what it is at this point. But basically 15,000 shaders, if we remember, we'll throw what the previous specifications had been thought to be on screen. But over the last 24 hours or so, all hell has been breaking loose, where Grayman on Twitter has put out some new specifications, including the fact that we're only looking around 12,000 shaders. By the way, just for everyone's sanity, I'm going to be rounding up and down the numbers when it comes to the shaders, because, well, again, my sanity. So, about a month ago, I actually was DMing with Grayman, and I actually heard these specifications myself. You can see on screen the DM conversation I had with Grayman with some stuff blanked out. Now, I want to be really clear here. I'm not sharing this without permission. Grayman told me I can share this. I also had this conversation with several other people, including some of my sources. And two of my sources told me that yes, 12,000 shaders was right back then. However, I was starting to believe that this was not correct, the 12,000 number, as you can see clearly in the conversation with Grayman, because I thought maybe it was a lower end SKU that was being discussed. And now I believe that this is almost certainly not true. I believe that basically it was never 15,000 shaders, it was always 12,000. It's possible that this is still 15,000. However, I'm at this point quite skeptical. I believe that it is actually 12,000 shaders. And we're going to go through the specifications that one set of my sources as well as Grayman was mentioning. And then we're going to go into a second set. Now, at this stage, I want to be really clear. I cannot be 100% certain which set is which. Navi 33, I'm almost 100% that we have got that information correct. But Navi 31, I'm hearing still both set of specifications from my sources, but I'm leaning towards the second set, which we'll discuss in just a moment. But first, let's, well, actually get into this, shall we? Because I'm already kind of rambling. By the way, just so you know, this video is it's really off the cuff. We weren't even supposed to be doing this video today. It was supposed to be an interview with Kronos Group discussing lots of cool stuff. Is one of the reasons, like, I was even supposed to have a haircut and everything, and just things went out the window, okay? So yeah, sorry for the kind of itsy bitsy nature of today's video. As I said, it was rather unplanned. Talking with the specification, wow, I really can't speak today. Talking about the specifications that Grayman and some of my previous sources told me, 12,288 stream processors, 48 work group processors. They are still technically compute units in this thing, but they're so different. 96 CU, 2 GCD, 12 shader arrays with 6 shader engines, 512 megabytes of infinity cache, 256-bit GDDR6 memory at 21 Gbps, and either 16 or 32 gigabytes of RAM. I believe with this specification, with this set of specs, if you will, we are looking at four chips for the infinity cache. So each of those would be 128 megabytes. So 128, 256, you can do the math. With the performance targets, we're looking at around 2.4, maybe 2.7, depending upon the title, faster than Navi 21. And this is thanks to a mixture of architectural improvements, efficiency, high clock frequency. Allegedly, it can go to around 3050 megahertz. Now, interestingly, from one of my sources, the actual power consumption targets are higher now. They used to be 375 watts to 450 for the AIB, but now apparently it can go up to 500 watts. I don't know whether that's true. Now, let's also mention that things get a little crazy with Navi 32. Navi 32 is 8,192 stream processors, 32 workgroup processors, 8 shader arrays with 4 engines, 256 megabytes Infinity cache. I've also heard 384-bit as well. 192-bit GDDR6 memory bus. That's 12 or 24 gigabytes of RAM. The memory, by the way, of 16 and 32 and 12 and 24, I'm hearing is being segmented based upon Pro lines and potentially like mainstream gaming cards. But again, a little bit of mixed info there. And the performance target is allegedly about 1.6 to 1.7 times faster than Navi 21. Ray tracing performance is much faster. With N31, it's apparently around 4 times faster than N21, but I don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of changes. Like, from my personal understanding so far, basically everything inside the workgroup processor essentially got doubled, so it makes sense. Now, let's really just briefly say that N33 is almost identical to what we've discussed 100,000 times over at this point. There's not really anything different. It's faster than 6900 XT, nice, and it obviously has all the benefits of RDNA 3, like, better ray tracing performance. The clock frequency is just ridiculous, like well north of 3000 megahertz, and it's going to just be absolutely ridiculous as a product. Now we're going to move on to the second set of specifications. I don't have them for N32 yet. You can probably figure them out based upon what I'm going to say with N31. And again, I have heard both set of specifications, but I believe this second set is more likely to be true at this stage. So we're still looking at the same number of stream processors, still across 48 workgroup processors, and this is still 96 compute units. Difference number 1. Not 2 GCDs. No, you're a bad GCD. No. It's a single GCD. Yeah. I was really surprised about this, but I've spoken to 2 people, and both of them, to my understanding, are not related to one another, and both of them now are insisting it's a single GCD. I actually have more that I don't want to say in public because I was asked not to, and I don't want to be a dick. So if someone tells me something, even if it's literally an image of the card, I am not going to leak it, because I'm just not like that. So if someone tells me something, I'm not going to say what I was told, but it's making me heavily lean towards this. I was given a die size, and I don't want to say what it is exactly, but let's say high 300s to low 400s. I'm getting that range slightly off, but I'm not going to say what it is in public because I wasn't given permission to share the die size. So I'm just giving you guys an idea of what it is. I'm sure that it will leak sooner or later. Next up. Oh, wow, there are so many weird things on this thing. 384 megabytes-ish of Infinity cache. I actually have forgotten different numbers about this, and I do not think this number is correct. I actually think that it's maybe a little bit higher or lower, but I'm putting that out there to give you a ballpark figure. The memory bus, though, is allegedly 384, not 256, although a second source is telling me 256, and I'm insisting that that is true. It's possible AMD are still testing both variants, or it's possible that it's something to do with segmentation. So, for example, one set of SKUs is going to be for one set of SKUs are going to be for the other. I don't know. I'm giving you guys both figures. I know that I'm giving you, some different variations on specifications, but again, I'm tapping into people, and this is like happening within the same day. Normally, I like a little bit longer to double check this stuff, but I had so many people DMing me and tagging me about this stuff, asking my opinion. Here's what I've got so far. I'm sure that I'll have an update in the next couple of weeks. Next, and this one is really, really going to shock many of you. It is not 3D stacked. I repeat, it is not 3D stacked. I don't want to say what I was actually told how it's packaged. I had some hints. You guys can probably do some due diligence on some things, but I'm not 100% sure that it's not 3D stacked, but I'm pretty certain at this stage it is not 3D stacked. So yeah, it's going to be a lot different to perhaps what many of us expected. And so the actual layout of this thing is going to be really different. Now, there are a couple of other things I want to mention because I'm sure I'm going to get questions about this. So again, I mentioned, you know, the 12,000 N31 stuff back in early April with Grayman. And I've had some people insist that the 12,000 variant is for like a lower end SKU, like the 7900 XT, for example, and the 7950 is going to be the one which actually features 15,000 shaders. However, I do not believe that this is true. At this stage, I think that there are a couple of potential possibilities. The first is just that this is the 12,000 shaders is not the top end variant, and there are higher end variants. I don't believe this is true. I don't think AMD also changed this later on or close to tape out. I don't think this has actually happened. I think that this has been just information where we've had some tidbits that has been correct. Now, it's very possible that, AMD initially, before the design really got too far, they were considering 15,000 shaders. But I don't think they went, let's say, really far into the design. I think they were maybe doing some simulations of different chips, very early on. And they were like, no, bollocks to this. This does not work. Let's go with 12,000. I think that the performance targets we got were pretty accurate. I mean, they have been, right? 2.5-ish times. It's pretty much been consistent. There was one point where it hit 3 times, but that seems to be more T-flop figures. And again, that is true. Because if you look at the T-flops of Navi 21 and you compare it to this, you guys get the idea. The ray tracing performance, again, that was on target. The GDDR6 memory, the number of shaders per workgroup processor, all of that stuff has been correct, but there has definitely been some elements to N31 which has been incorrect. Now, before we close out the video, there is a few other small little things. I am pretty certain at this point that AMD and Nvidia and Intel are making radical changes to some of their products. I have some ideas that this is going to be really impactful, not so much for RTX 40, for example, with Nvidia, although they do seem to have incorporated some Hopper technology, as CopyD7 Kimmy mentioned. But I also suspect that this is going to radically adjust their strategy, shall I say, going forward. And I feel that AMD, Intel, and Nvidia are going to be ultra aggressive. Now, you're going to say to yourself, well, why is Nvidia acting like this? Well, one of the reasons I feel that Nvidia does not want to be beaten is because, as we know, Phoenix is going to be ridiculous. I still feel that the Phoenix information, by the way, is right that I leaked. And that thing is going to be rapid. It's going to be... basically, there's no point owning something like a 3050 or a 3060 mobile solution if you have this. So it's going to essentially mean that Nvidia are, I wouldn't say rendered obsolete, but more pointless. Because if you have an iGPU which can basically do all the same thing, you're just making a design more complicated. If you add discrete graphics, because you still have to have memory, you still have to have all the phases. You get the idea. You just need the stuff to actually run the GPU. It's not like it's free. You still need all of that additional PCB, the cooling. But if you have an iGPU, you don't need to do that. So for AMD to offer an all-in-one solution, it makes sense. Especially because obviously DDR5 memory, or whatever memory is in the system, whether it's LP, DDR5X or whatever, it's still going to be there anyway. So yeah, I think Nvidia does not want to lose the high-end battle, or indeed any of the battle for the desktop. I think they're going to fight tooth. They're going to fight nail. They're going to do everything they can. They're going to be using marketing tactics. They're going to just do everything they can. Like, I don't know. They're just going to be ultra aggressive. And it's the same for AMD, and it's going to be the same for Intel. All of them are going to be putting crap tons of money into MDF, marketing development funds. They're all going to be pushing AIBs, of course, as much as possible as well. They're going to be doing this a lot with OEMs and, system integrators, and it's going to be a very interesting scenario. And what I will also say on all of this subject is that I suspect that the software ecosystem is going to become quite interesting. I believe DLSS 3 is real at this stage. And I've been hearing murmurs like the fact that it's considerably better for ray tracing performance. I personally, and this is not a leak, I personally think Nvidia are going to be forced to open DLSS up. I think AMD can steal a lot of share from Nvidia in the discrete market. I do not think this is rip Nvidia. I think Nvidia are going to be just fine. They have still a lot of brand recognition, they have a lot of fans, and I think that Nvidia are going to be really aggressive. But from all I'm hearing now, I do not think N31 is going to be as expensive as initially leaked. I think it's going to be cheaper, because I think it's going to be cheaper to produce perhaps than what we'd initially thought. And again, that's one of the other reasons I'm more inclined to believe this rumor of this second specification, because it would become more expensive. If you remember, one of the earlier leaks I had with N31, remember when I was talking about a while back, I don't remember which video it was, but 128 megabytes for the Infinity Cache, and it was going to be connected to the GCDs via TSVs and through silicon vias. Which obviously, A, is a point of failure. B, if you're overclocking the GPU, it can also lead to failure. There's just a ton of things, quote unquote, that can go wrong. And the more points of failure you have, the more the cost goes up. Furthermore, it's just more engineering efforts to design. When you've got more GCDs, again, it's more expensive. It just becomes messier. That's, just to really simplify things, it just becomes messier. And that's one of this is why I believe this second info is to be more likely to be true. I don't 100% know. I want to stress, I could make a video tomorrow and say, you know what, guys, I was an idiot, this is all wrong. But just looking at what AMD do typically, their strategy, just generally speaking, I'm going to really dumb it down here and not talk about like super complicated stuff, but just really simplified. AMD wants to design a part which is A, versatile, B, it's stackable, like you can throw things together with chiplets, so you can obviously configure things how you want. And they also tend to make a part with the idea that, for example, look at how they're handling ray tracing, where they're essentially reusing the TMUs on the GPU. That seems to be AMD's philosophy. And again, it's being really smart with the design. Like the Infinity Cache, for example, there's a reason that they went with Infinity Cache for the desktop. It's not because Infinity Cache sounds really cool, it's not magical. Like, there's a reason that Xbox or the PlayStation doesn't have Infinity Cache. It's not because it's not full RDNA or any of that bollocks, it's simply because they do not need it, because they've got an abundance of bandwidth for the amount of compute performance they have, thanks to their fast GDDR6 memory. The Xbox, for example, has a really fast memory partition. For the desktop, this is not the case. With the desktop, it doesn't have that. With the desktop, they went with GDDR6 memory, but you're running that on like a 6800 XT or a 6900 XT. So the Infinity Cache is basically a portion of the chip, of course, which basically gives tons of fast local memory, L3 essentially, to basically store instructions or like data, so it doesn't keep needing to go out to the slower memory. So essentially, it reduces the cost of the production. And AMD obviously did like an analysis, and they were like, okay, gee whiz, if we look at the N21 die, you can just Google it, or we'll remember to throw it on screen. You can look at the N21 die. You can say, well, gee whiz, look, you've got the workgroup processors there, you've got this there, you've got that there. And then look at the amount of die space that the Infinity Cache takes. You can say, well, hang on a minute. It obviously must have been cheaper. It must have been more efficient for AMD to have taken up that space, to have a larger die with obviously increased failure rates and stuff that is associated with. Because obviously if a portion of that Infinity cache goes bye-bye. They can't just be like, oh, I'm sure it's fine with 112 megabytes, it's usable. It obviously isn't going to work right. So they did all of that, analysis, and this is why I think it's very likely that AMD are being smart. There are still, however, the MCDs, I believe, which are created on the 6nm process. I didn't mention that earlier. Yeah, that's about it for this video, guys. I've been rambling longer than I anticipated. This was supposed to be a shorter video. Again, I apologize for just it being a little, well, I suppose I'm always rambly, but this is like Ultra Ramble 2000. If you've enjoyed it, you know what to do. Leave a like and all of that stuff. It's YouTube, and I really hope this is the right specification this time. It's kind of driving me a little nuts. We are, however, getting really close now to actually solid information, I suspect, because the cards are getting closer to launch, so that's good, right? With that said, thanks very much for watching the video. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.